Good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to our June Coast to Coast Prostate Cancer Support Group meeting. Today's meeting is going to be focused on exercise. Maya and I will be moderating this meeting today, so if you have any questions or concerns during the meeting, please feel free to send either of us a private message via the chat. Mics will be muted during presentations and the Q&A, but please feel free to send any questions via the chat should anything arise during the presentations. And we'll try to address as many questions as possible during our Q&A session. You may also send questions via the chat during the Q&A, or you can use the raise your hand function on Zoom, which you'll find on your Zoom toolbar. We'll call on attendees to unmute their mics in the order that the questions are asked. Depending on how long our Q&A period runs, there may be time for small group discussions in the breakout rooms that you chose when you registered for this meeting. As always, a reminder that our support group meetings are strictly confidential, and any personal information that is shared here today should not be shared outside of this group. The first half of this meeting will be recorded to share with others who are not able to attend today, then shared on our YouTube channel. But the recording will be shut off following the presentations to encourage free and open discussion, as well as to protect the privacy of all of our participants. A final reminder as well that the facilitators and moderators of this group are not medical professionals and as such do not give medical advice. And any opinions and information that are shared at these meetings do not replace the advice of a medical professional. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Maya, who will introduce our first speaker.
So hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. We have 3 speakers today, but I'll introduce the first one and they'll introduce each other as their presentation goes on. So first speaking, we have Dr. Nicole Culos-Reed. She's a professor in the Faculty of Kinesiology at the University of Calgary, an adjunct professor at the Department of Oncology, Cumming School of Medicine at the University of Calgary as well, and a researcher in the Department of Psychosocial Resources, Tom Baker Cancer Center, Cancer Care for Alberta Health Services. Dr. Culos-Reed is a health behavior change researcher who builds, implements, and assesses the effectiveness of exercise programs for individuals living with and beyond cancer. So without further ado, I will give the floor to her.
Perfect, thank you. I'm gonna start sharing my screen here. Once I've got that up, I can get a thumbs up. Everybody can see the slide. Perfect, wonderful. Well, thank you to the Prostate Cancer Support Canada group for inviting us to be here today. I'm Nicole Culos-Reed, and I'm going to start us off speaking about the research and the programming really available through our Project Excel, Exercise for Cancer to Enhance Living Well. Before we get into Excel, I'm going to give you a little bit more of background and really focus on what we do as a research group here, and that's focus on health behavior change. Before I begin, I do want to acknowledge that no matter where we sit across Canada today, that we live and work within traditional territories. Here in Calgary, that is of the Blackfoot people and the people of the Treaty 7 region. In addition, the city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. So a little bit of, I guess, housework before we get started, a couple key definitions that you're going to hear us use today. The first one is physical activity, and that's really all movement you do today. So I encourage you actually, while you're listening to this, to think about, can you just move a little while you're listening? Up and down out of your chair, stretch your arms, roll your shoulders, right? All movement counts, and that's one of our key messages. And then we're going to talk about that more structured movement that you really engage in to achieve health and wellness benefits, exercise. Often we'll use the terms interchangeably. When we talk about the research, it is primarily exercise that is being studied, but really important to acknowledge that physical activity, your movement throughout the day, and being as movement-based as possible. So reducing sedentary time is really the key to living well. So if we look at the literature, we have extensive evidence really highlighting the benefit of exercise for those living with and beyond cancer, often termed cancer survivors. And there's evidence in a lot of different tumor groups and with mixed populations. Prostate cancers are actually second most studied population after breast cancer. Okay, so we have hundreds of studies literally showing the benefits, immediate benefits, physical and psychosocial, as well as long-term benefits of engaging in exercise for those who have been diagnosed with prostate cancer. In a recent review published in 2018, just to give you an idea, this is a review of meta-analyses. So it looked at all of the compilations, the gathering of research It included 65 articles with 140 independent meta-analyses, so statistical techniques to look at effects of exercise. And across this literature, 99% of it reported benefits of exercise. So a first key take-home message is really there's not a downside to exercise as part of your care plan across the cancer journey, right? It's unlike any pill out there on the market, which always has a negative side effect. The side effects of exercise are all positive, right? And you can see some of the side effects about exercise, i.e. the outcomes here. So health-related quality of life and cancer-related fatigue are our two most commonly studied outcomes in the literature. And consistently, we see, just doesn't matter on the population, doesn't matter on the exercise prescription, we see positive impact from exercise on these outcomes. Some you might expect, things like cardiovascular fitness, muscular fitness, also improved with engaging in exercise, right? And that's often what we think with exercise. You exercise, you get fitness changes, right? Cardiovascular, maybe more muscles, more strength. But in addition to this, we also know that exercise is a very potent tool for the indices of emotional distress, sadness, anxiety, and depression, which often come part and parcel with the diagnosis of cancer, right? And we have very strong evidence that exercise as a tool for mental health and mental well-being is very strong. Okay, so a lot of important outcomes studied, and we see a wide range across studies, and we see differences in some of the changes in these outcomes depending on the nature of the studies. But I think really consistent and important to note is that overall, the outcomes are there, the benefits are there for individuals when they engage in exercise. In addition, and this may be really relevant as you move through the cancer journey into survivorship, there are clearly noted potential survival benefits associated with being inactive versus active, right? And this reference here, the Kenfield et al. 2011, is specific to prostate cancer, and it looked at the differences, the association between men who report being inactive or sedentary, so not consistently getting any physical activity or exercise minutes a week, compared to men who are achieving modest to higher levels, I guess, of moderate to vigorous activity over the week. So at least 90 minutes a week, that was kind of the cut point for the active group. And if you look at this literature, it clearly shows benefits from being physically active in terms of significantly reduced risk of cancer recurrence, significantly reduced risk of cancer mortality, and very importantly, reduced risk of all-cause mortality in that active group compared to the sedentary. Okay, so this is association, large-scale population health data here. It's not cause and effect. It's not saying if you exercise, you will have zero risk of, it causes zero risk in all-cause mortality, right? So we know it's not a cause and effect relationship, but clearly an important association. And of all of the lifestyle behaviors that we have, and even longer-term treatments, exercise really shows our greatest potential for long-term survival benefits, right? By living a healthy, active lifestyle. So that's the good long-term. In the future, what can you do to improve your chances of survival and decrease your chances of recurrence? But in addition, then we know that the here and now, the immediate benefits from exercise are there. So if we look across the entire cancer continuum, really exercise's role largely does depend on where you are in that cancer journey, anywhere from pre-treatment all the way through to living with cancer or advanced cancer care. Most of the research is in that treatment and post-treatment groups, right? So can we alleviate the usual negative symptoms and side effects associated with treatment? And then after treatment is done, the body naturally starts to recover. But we can also then use exercise to enhance that recovery and really have people living well. So the goal is exercise integrated into the cancer care continuum so that wellness is part of that cancer journey. If we look at the immediate benefits, physical and psychosocial, we see strong evidence there, as you can see, for some of our psychosocial outcomes, as well as physical function, and then management of some of the key negative side effects associated with treatment, such as lymphedema. Moderate evidence in terms of benefits for bone health, which is very relevant to prostate cancer, and sleep function. And then as of to date, really limited evidence around some of the other symptoms and side effects. Now, this inconclusive row for cognitive function all the way down to CIPN, chemotherapy-induced peripheral neuropathy, or a variety of other outcomes, isn't because that there isn't a link between exercise and these outcomes. It's simply because there hasn't been enough research done yet, right? So we have limited understanding of the potential role versus something like fatigue. It has been one of our most studied outcomes. And so we have a strong body of evidence there. So don't be dismayed if you look at, oh, it's not going to help me with falls at all. Simply not true. We just haven't studied falls as an outcome enough to say we have moderate or strong evidence. So to give you a bit more of an idea of, what's our level of evidence, I'll take the cancer-related fatigue issue, which is the #1 negative reported side effect across all individuals living with and beyond cancer. It can start during treatment, it can come after treatment. And really what we see consistently is that we get into this vicious cycle of fatigue, where someone is fatigued, they're tired, so they sit and rest, thinking, okay, I sit and rest because I'm tired. But that actually leads to deconditioning and some physiological impacts, such as muscle atrophy or losing muscle mass and muscle strength. That leads to more fatigue, right? So you can see this downward spiral starts to happen with, I'm tired, I sit and rest, I decondition, I become more tired. What we know from the evidence, and there's thousands of studies where we've got fatigue as an outcome, and I was part of this group that did this review a couple of years ago looking at physical activity. And across all of the studies, what we showed was that consistently exercise is an evidence-based tool to break this cycle of fatigue, to help people start to move more so that they can gain the muscle strength that they need to then function better and to build up their energy so that they can then engage in more movement, right? And so it is truly our best evidence-based tool. There isn't a pill for fatigue, right? There isn't one single mechanism. Physicians need to, they rule out any potential physiological causes for fatigue when someone starts to experience this. But unfortunately, in most cases, it's just assumed, cancer-related fatigue is going to happen to you at some point. And there's not really a strong focus on what can we do for fatigue. Yet the evidence is clearly there. Exercise is a tool that we should be using. Across this area of work in prostate cancer specifically, we see a number of studies, and really the group that's led a lot of this research that all of us seem to follow is out of Australia, and Daniel Galvao and Newton and others there have published a lot looking at exercise as medicine in men with prostate cancer. And what they concluded in this recent publication was that across the board, we know that there are benefits for men to engage in exercise. There's those physical benefits, psychosocial benefits, and there are evidence for that long-term survival benefits. If we look across the literature, they saw that men, contrary to what many might think, actually prefer the group settings versus individual to maximize benefits. And again, a caveat with that, because some people do prefer individual workouts, and if that's your strong preference, then you're likely to do it. Then it doesn't matter how many group settings are offered if you don't want it, right? But we know that that group environment can really maximize some of the physical and psychosocial benefits. The biggest barrier for men are many of the treatment-related side effects. So incontinence, fatigue, changes in muscle strength, changes in body composition. Those can all be significant barriers to moving more. We know that in programs where we foster that sense of masculinity, it tends to facilitate adherence. So in the prostate literature, we've seen a lot of sport-based programs as an example, where it allows men to connect in a kind of more sport-based setting in comparison to, something that might be more support group structures types of settings. And that we are much more likely to help men to move more when exercise is built into the treatment plan. And this is true for prostate cancer, but it's true across all individuals living with and beyond cancer. It's really clear that if we have this facilitated and supported within the clinical setting, we're much more likely to move men into accessing wellness as part of living well with and beyond cancer. So based on all the evidence, we have specific cancer and exercise guidelines. They're very similar to Canada's physical activity guidelines for adults and older adults. And you can see them here. We've got them across our different fitness categories: aerobic or cardiovascular activity, strength training, and flexibility training. And you're going to see in our Excel program how we target all these, plus, balance and just overall mobility, right? And these are the core components of fitness that we know when we can help people reach these guidelines, that we're much more likely to have them achieve many of the benefits, physical, physiological, and psychosocial. I think what's really important to note though, is that you shouldn't look at this and go, holy, I'm not anywhere close to 90 minutes a week. There's no way I can do this. These are the gold standard to optimize benefits. However, we know that if you get 5 to 10 minutes a day on a regular basis, you're going to achieve benefits from that as well. You might not be building up all the strength and physiological changes until you hit kind of a certain amount or minutes and levels of different areas of training in these fitness parameters, but you're going to get well-being benefits. You're going to have psychosocial benefits and ultimately quality of life benefits. We see that in people who can build a habit of movement at whatever level, that their quality of life is higher than those who are inactive. Okay, so gold standard, but don't look at these and go, wow, I'm not even close, so why bother? Important that we think about getting to where it's comfortable for you and you can build the habit of exercise or more movement into your daily lifestyle. Importantly, along with these guidelines come some really important recommendation statements. The first one is exercise is safe and feasible during treatment. So we absolutely do not have to wait till treatment is completed to help individuals start to move more. Now, post-surgery, the guidelines in prostate cancer are fairly clear. 4 to 6 weeks before adding in any further resistance other than your own body weight, right? And really start low, progress slow, right? We don't jump to trying to get back to everything. After surgery, incisions have to heal. We have to make sure everything's feeling okay before you would add in more moderate or vigorous. But mobility after surgery is absolutely key to the healing process. So we want you to move. After treatment, the guidelines, statements, and recommendations clearly indicate that exercise is essential for recovery and fitness. And that means it must be built into cancer care plans, right? It shouldn't be something you luck into, you find out you have access to or not. It has to become standard across cancer care. And then the key to optimizing benefits is this last point in gray. Individualization and tailoring are 100% necessary in order to achieve benefits. So if you went back to this slide, right, of here's the general guidelines, this doesn't fit for everybody. We need to take this approach and then go, okay, let's meet the individual where they're at, tailor their exercise prescription to their needs. It's just like you wouldn't be given the same medical prescription, whether it's for treatments or for a pill for whatever, that's the same as everybody else, right? It's always tailored to you, your gender, your weight, your age, all sorts of factors, the type of disease you have, right? Exercise is the same thing. We have to tailor it to meet your needs so that when we're meeting you where you're at, we're helping you to achieve the benefits that are relevant to you and important to you. So we have all this evidence. It's wonderful. Exercise is good for all of us. I think we know that. And yet the bad news is that most individuals, adults in general, are inactive. And when we look across cancer survivorship, we know that very few individuals are actually achieving enough physical activity to get any benefits, right? So during treatment, some of the numbers, they range, but about 10% are active during treatment, and it only goes up to about 20 to 30% after treatment. Okay, well below what we would hope to achieve, knowing how good exercise is for just well-being, quality of life, but ultimately long-term survival. Okay, and so when we, oh, there's a typo on this one, sorry, it's not 17 to 473%, but 17 to 47% of individuals meet the guidelines. So it's a range across different groups, depending on different studies. And really what we know, it's not that people don't want to exercise, it's that there's a lot of barriers there, right? We haven't supported it within the system. It feels like an additional demand on people, taxing their time. They may not have the resources. During COVID, for goodness sake, we absolutely saw the issue of accessibility, right? And it was hard to get it. And what could you do that was safe? And ultimately, you know, it's not prioritized within the cancer care system, right? It's not something you hear about. It's not something that's just standard and offered to you within that system. So that's where we really have to go. Before we go into the resources, I want to touch a little bit on, you know, how we do this, and considering that oftentimes when we look at physical activity levels of an individual, we go, okay, well, it's all up to you. And I want to have us dial back from that, because yes, ultimately you're the one who's going to move more and engage in that change, but there's a lot of things we can build around you to make the environment more supportive so that you can do that. And that's what I study, health behavior change. How do we help you make it easier for you, make it more appealing for you to actually engage in physical activity? And so these are some of the common barriers. All of us, lack of time. It's like, oh, I'm so busy, I can't fit this in. And I would argue that lack of time is more often an excuse or lack of prioritizing movement or exercise as part of our self-care and our healthcare, right? So if the system made it a priority, lack of time would disappear as one of our barriers. But these other ones, motivation, ability, lack of social support, lack of knowing what I can do and do safely, especially as I go through cancer treatment. These are all very real barriers that we have to address if we're going to support this. And so I'm going to start talking about these resources that we have, and a lot of it includes the education on health behavior change, as well as the programs that we have available coast to coast, just like your talk today in the groups that's here today. Before we begin, 4 key messages that I want you to just keep in mind. The first one is what I said at the very beginning, physical activity or movement. Simply move more. And then if you can start to build that up, can you get in some more structured exercise minutes daily? And don't think you have to jump, right? You're not a racehorse 0 to 60, right? It's, can you add in 5 minutes a day and do that consistently for a few weeks till it becomes your habit? And then start to add a few more minutes on a couple of days, right? So it's building it up slow and progressing so that it feels good. And that's the second point, right? It feels good. Listen to your body, because you are ultimately the best expert in your body and how it feels. So it's not the Jane Fonda era of no pain, no gain, right? It is when you engage in this, you should feel good. It should increase your energy. It should decrease your fatigue. And after, it should still feel good. So no negative rebounds after. And then 2 big factors from a health behavior change that we know ultimately can help build the habit. And the first is social support. So really clear evidence that active lifestyles are easier to maintain when you have support around you for it. And that can be the system supporting it. It can be a workout buddy, a walking partner. It can be the fitness instructor in an online group activity program, or just the class you feel accountable to. And then the flip side of support are going back to those barriers, right? What really are your barriers? If you're sitting here listening today and you're like, yeah, I'm not even close to getting these minutes a week, and I know I could, but I don't like it, or, oh, I don't know what to do, or, hey, I don't have access to anything, right? Those can be real potential barriers. So that's where learning these behavior change strategies can be very helpful, right? So learning how to exercise, most of us can put on a pair of shoes and get out for a walk. You don't have to learn much then, but if you're adding in strength training or balance activities, you might actually have to learn the exercise. But beyond that, we know we can teach people exercises, and it still doesn't mean they're going to develop the habit of doing this on an ongoing basis. That development of habit, changing your exercise behavior so it becomes part of your usual activities, really comes down to these behavior change strategies. And some of these might look familiar. I've already touched upon the social support, but barrier management, goal setting, tracking what you're doing and gaining that feedback, and then just learning more about all the ways that exercise can support you. So some of this may be recap for some of you. If you've ever been in a program or ever engaged in changing a habit, you know about some of these already. So I'm not going to give all the details. I will just say, and I think we've got a slide later on, but we've got resources built around these already. So we'll give you access to the website. It's all free. You can download goal setting sheets and barrier management sheets and things to help you start to work through the process. But goal setting is probably our most evidence-based tool, right? And you probably have heard of SMART goals before. And if you haven't, this is what they are. And we add a couple elements to ours. But it's okay to have a long-term goal. It's okay to say, well, I want to start moving more now so that I've got energy to do the Terry Fox run in September. Right? Great. That's a great long-term goal. Now you need to break it down. How do you get to there? Okay. Do you not walk at all and then just do the run? Okay. That might hurt a little bit afterwards, but you could. But can you also just build in the steps? So I like to think of goal setting as, what are your steps? Where are you going? How do you get to what's up here? Right? You could try the big leap, or you can build in stepping stones along the way. And that's what goal setting is all about. So specifically break it down on a day-by-day or week-by-week basis. How are you going to measure it so you're accountable? Make sure it's attainable. If you set the goal of going from 0 minutes a week to 40 minutes every day, that might not work out, right? So can you break it down a little bit further? And then make sure these last 2, I think, are really important. It's relevant to you and realistic, so you can achieve it. And it's timely and together. So set timelines for each of your goals so you can celebrate your successes and or adapt them as need be. And then that together, the social support element is absolutely critical. You're much more likely if you're accountable to somebody, you're checking in with somebody, or you've got somebody doing it with you. Okay, any of those can work. to do goal setting well, it helps if you do it in conjunction with this action planning, right? And I'm a big write things down kind of person, right? So I might write down my to-do list for the day or my goals for that week, right? But actually tracking things down, planning it out, we often call this planning implementation. It's absolutely critical, especially when you're starting to build a new habit, like starting to move more. Okay, and we still, in many of our studies, will give people calendars and ask them to schedule across the week. Where are you fitting your minutes in? And you can use a digital calendar. That's what works for you. There's tons of apps out there, but simply starting to put it into your calendar, right? So it becomes something, just like you put a medical appointment into your calendar, put in your appointments for your self-care, your movement into that. We know that when we do this, when we're writing things down and then we are accountable to those things, it enhances our confidence or our self-efficacy. So we become more likely to use the successes to go, okay, I can do this. And that feedback and the reward system we build into action planning can further you building more actions for more change. So simple as this, a scheduling of exercise, right? So this is a weekly calendar and you've noted down, okay, I'm working towards these goals. This is what I like to do. This is how it makes me feel. Here's where I'm going to break down my SMART goals, my specific activities over the course of the week. So it can be as simple as something like this. And we've got a downloadable worksheet like this on our website that you can access. As part of setting goals, as part of your planning, it's really important that you hold yourself accountable. And that's where self-monitoring comes in, right? So you've made some plans, you've built the social support into those plans. You start to manage anything that comes up, right? So, oh, you had an appointment that took you off your plans that day, or you felt not great that day, or the weather was bad, didn't get in what I was going to do, right? So you use self-monitoring to start to see what's coming up that's derailing you, what's coming up that's helping to support you. And then you start to address those as you go along and you work towards your goal attainment. Again, really important, and especially if you're setting those SMART goals that really break it down, whether it's a daily goal or a weekly goal, you've got a timeline there where you can then celebrate achieving it or reassess, reevaluate, and reset it, right? Either way, that goal still becomes a motivation versus a barrier, right? If the goal is too far out and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm here and I didn't get to it. Oh, well, then you just go back to the basics, right? The goals are shorter. You can go, yes, I did it, or okay, I'm going to reset it for later in the week because I didn't quite get there. Right? It gives you a chance to then still experience success. So a lot of pieces in here that may seem very intuitive, but often we just ignore it. We just assume, okay, it's just exercise. I'll just do it over time, right? But being more intentional, setting things and tracking your behavior, seeing what's helping you, seeing what's hurting you can be really, really motivational and help you move forward with that behavior change. And then again, across all of this is really the key of social support. You're going to hear from Nicole after me about the program we built, Excel, and key in that is that we do this in a group-based setting for that social support. And we have really well-trained instructors who can then support you as you engage in this behavior change. So it's absolutely essential that you look across your circles, right? Whether it's you need support from the system level or the clinicians or family. It can be all sorts of types of support. It doesn't have to be somebody doing it with you, but it could be somebody who validates it, pumps you up a little bit, gives that emotional support, right? All sorts of different things. You have to figure out what you need though, and really tap into this. And oftentimes having those group environments can be a great way to ensure you're building in some support into this behavior change process. So here's the website I was talking about. Tons of free resources, thrivehealthservices.com. This is our training website. We train fitness professionals as part of our work. But all of the Thriver, you'll see a tab on the website called Thriver. All of the resources on there are free. So you can go in and do worksheets, print out schedules, help you set SMART goals, right? All of those pieces are there free to download, and you can download the PDF and print it at home or keep it on your computer, whatever works for you. I encourage you, if you're using something like a schedule, printing things out, keep them where they're visual to you, right? On your fridge, on your mirror, in your bathroom, so that it's not buried under sheets on your desk. If you saw my desk right now, you'd know what I mean. But if it's buried, it's less likely to be something that you refer back to. And these are worksheets. They're not just information. They're worksheets for you to use and to really help support your behavior change. So I encourage you to check out all of the free resources that are at Thrive Health. The other awesome, I think, resource that we have on Thrive Health is our Thriver Manual. And again, this is completely free for you to download. It is a really comprehensive wellness guide. So it covers, as you can see there, elements about cancer, the role of exercise, how you play an active role in that, to nutrition. How do you need to eat well to have the energy to move more, right? The behavior change piece, and then a list of resources. So there's a lot of pieces across this manual that can be really useful for helping you to just start to figure out maybe what's missing. What pieces do you still need to tap into to enhance your likelihood of success, right? Because here's the thing, exercise behavior change is hard, right? It's not simply that easy. It's not like 1, 2, 3, you're done, right? If it was easy, all of us would be exercising more than enough, right? But life gets in the way, we don't prioritize it. So tap into these resources to really help support this change, which, you know, I love people thinking exercise is easy. Yes, go for it, but it's hard to keep it going. Okay, so tap into the resources to increase your likelihood of success. This is the last resource. No, I've got 2 more that I want to really briefly tell you about. This one is our website at the university. So different than the last website, Thrive for Cancer Survivors. And on here, we have a link to our YouTube channel, and we have a whole host of videos showing you different exercises you can do from home. We have 8 weeks of our exercise program on there. We've got some of our yoga resources and program on there. So just a whole host of things showing you chair exercises, exercises with your own body weight, exercises with bands, exercises with tins of soup, like whatever you need to use, right? And so really, hopefully, easy to follow along. And if you're familiar with exercise, especially resistance training, can just maybe offer some support or some motivation for things you can do at home. If you're brand new to exercise, there are some beginner ones on here for sure, but I encourage you to make sure that you're doing things safely and that your body's okay to move. So again, that could be post-treatment, or you've got other comorbidities to consider. So really the role of a fitness professional can't be replaced, but this is a really good supplementary resource to give you some things that you can do on your own at home or wherever. There's other prostate specific resources. Now this one is in Alberta. It's our exercise programming that we run out of the Prostate Cancer Center here. These are online classes. Nicole actually teaches one of the nights of our programming, and then there's a male yoga instructor who teaches one of the other nights. But these are great resources if you're local to Alberta here, that you can tap into for some online classes that are geared to meet the specific needs of individuals with prostate cancer. And then the last prostate specific resource I want to highlight is a national initiative that I've had the pleasure of leading for the last few years called True North. And this comes from Movember and Prostate Cancer Canada. And the website is the one at the bottom, lifestyle.truenorth.ca. And this website has a whole host of resources, including an exercise program, a yoga program, and then a lot of educational pieces. And so this is still up and running as now. We're transferring a lot of the material to our website at the university because the funding for this initiative has ended. But for now, it's still fully accessible. And through this program, you can connect with our clinical exercise physiologist in my lab to get really one-on-one support for building an individualized, tailored program for yourself. So I highly encourage you to check out this True North resource because everything on here is specific to men with prostate cancer. So it's a really great resource and starting point. Okay, so with that, we're going to transition now to exercise programs. So I've given you a lot of resources you can tap into for supporting behavior change, for educational, and some kind of online pieces that are not live, right? They're just resources that are built, videos that exist. I'm going to turn it over now to Nicole Struthers. Nicole is a clinical exercise physiologist in my lab, has been with me for a number of years now, and then she is one of our primary clinical exercise physiologists on the Excel program. So Nicole's going to start with this slide on what was the basis for Excel here in Alberta, and then speak to you specifically about Excel as a resource that you have at your hands.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nicole. Everyone can hear me okay? Just quick thumbs up. Excellent. All right. So Alberta Cancer Exercise, this was our 5-year study, basically for the major urban centers in Alberta. So we had study locations running in-person programs in both Calgary and Edmonton, and then a couple other major city centers. But we realized that we really wanted to take this and spread it across Canada. And so we were able to get grant funding to take the program and to create the Excel program that we're going to spend a little bit more time talking about. So Excel stands for Exercise for Cancer to Enhance Living Well. And it's a program that is based upon the same exercise programming as the ACE program, but we're trying to reach a greater population across Canada, specifically those in smaller communities who don't have access to the same programming and resources as those in the major urban centers. So often there's a lot more support through the major hospitals, different programming available with communities like Wellspring, support groups, but a lot of times the smaller centers or communities just don't have the same resources. So with the Excel program, what it is it's a 12-week free exercise program that's led by qualified exercise oncology trained instructors. It's for those living in rural and remote areas across Canada, and it's online, so it makes it easy for everyone to join via Zoom. So same platform that we're on here. You guys are all familiar with it now after 2 years of COVID. And our next program is starting in the fall. And so we have had such a great group of individuals join our program and really start to see the benefits of these movements. But not only the physical aspect like Nicole talked about, but the psychosocial support aspect of it, because we know that exercise is so much more than just those physical benefits. So the eligibility criteria is you have had a cancer diagnosis. Now, all of you are here because you have a prostate cancer diagnosis. The next one is that you are on or up to 3 years post-treatment. So it's kind of to help people recover or to get through treatment and still maintain some of those physical benefits from exercise. You need to be able to consent in English and be older than 18 years. And then participate in low to moderate physical activity. Finally, access to reliable internet and able to participate in online classes. And so what happens with the Excel program, if you decide that you would like to pursue this opportunity, is we have a clinical exercise physiologist, so someone like myself, who kind of goes through all of your health history just to make sure that we have all the relevant information that we need to in order to keep you safe. If, for example, you have an advanced cancer diagnosis, maybe some bone or other health conditions, we'll gain medical clearance as well. So we'll try to work with your family or oncologists, doctors, et cetera, just to make sure that we have open communication and all the information we need to kind of tailor the exercise to fit your needs. Finally, those who have a few of those extra complications or advanced disease will make sure that they're in a class with someone who is a CEP, so that clinical exercise physiologist, who has additional training in how to keep you safe and make sure that we're tailoring to your needs. So then after that, you get cleared. We do a little fitness assessment at the beginning to kind of establish that baseline of where you're at. And then, oh, sorry, Nicole, one back. And then you get to join the program. So the program, like we mentioned, is that 12-week free group-based program. It's circuit style. So we do a combination of resistance, a little bit of cardio blast thrown in, some core engagement, as well as flexibility at the end. Like we mentioned, it's a Zoom platform, and we have an instructor as well as an assistant, a moderator to kind of ensure things are running smoothly, help with technical issues, keep an eye on everything to make sure we're all doing good. So we're really focused on making sure everyone feels safe and comfortable and that you are set up well for success. So common questions here. These kind of pop up quite frequently as we chat with people about the Excel program. But to start off with, we want to meet you where you're at. So it doesn't matter where your previous exercise background is. We meet you wherever you're at. If you finish treatment and you're like, man, I have no energy, I don't know if I can do this, that's okay. We start there and we slowly build up. So we take into consideration of your current fitness levels and equipment, right? So we modify based off of your needs. So for example, if you have a bad hip or knees and you can't get onto the floor and you're like, I don't know if I can do a group exercise class, don't worry. We have modifications to make sure that you don't have to go onto the ground. You can do core from the standing position. If you haven't done any exercise classes before and you're wondering, do I need previous experience? Absolutely not. We have lots of people who start for the first time post-treatment and they're like, I've never done this before. This is kind of intimidating, but we try to create that safe space. We try to have it comfortable for those who've never exercised before, but also have that challenge for those who have maybe done more resistance training before and are just looking for that extra accountability and guidance. Another big one is if you're on treatment and you don't feel good, should you join? Should you wait? I would say we really work on guiding you through fatigue and learning to listen to your body. And so sometimes, like Nicole talked about, exercise can be super helpful during treatment to help mitigate the side effects of a lot of those treatments. So we would kind of monitor your fatigue throughout, monitor energy levels. And then on days when you're like, you know what, I really need to take a day off, we understand. And that's okay. You don't have to show up to every class. So we kind of use that fatigue and energy as a guide. And like we mentioned, if you have absolutely no equipment, it's amazing what you can scrounge up from around the house to be able to do this. The kitchen chair, maybe some soup cans or some filled water bottles, but everyone tends to have those good old physio bands. And so from previous physio visits, right? So we often use those a lot as well. So you really don't need much to join. And so it's not just exercise. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pass it over to Dale. Dale is one of our actually graduates of our Excel program. And so he's going to chat about a little bit of his experience. We can talk all we want about exercise and the benefits, but we really think that it's so much more meaningful if we have someone who's been there, experienced where you're at, and can attest to the power of our communities and exercise as a recovery tool. So Dale, welcome. I'm going to pass the mic over to you.
Okay, I hope, I see myself on the screen, so everyone else can see me. So thank you, Nicole, and also thank you to the wellness group at the U of C for putting the whole program on. And also thanks to the folks that are putting today's presentation on. Those are important. You have to have these events and those to the volunteers and whatnot. Good for you. Thanks for doing what you do. I participated in the XL program after treatment and radiation and the androgen deprivation therapy that I had 18 months. So I was kind of in just post radiation and in the middle of more or less the ADT. So I saw the poster in the Regina support group's newsletter and gain salutes go to those folks that do that. And so we'll talk a little bit about what I thought were benefits. And but I found that XL was kind of a routine. It's a thing to do, a thing to look forward to. You began to get ready, get your runners and get your some t-shirts on and whatnot. And that was a routine. It was the day or the time it was coming. And so that was kind of good. And in fact, one of the participants we had, she had a family in the Middle East. And so she went over there to visit and she didn't miss her XL program, and all kudos to her because the oddball time, I'm sure, from the time change to when the presentation was. So that's a routine and something to look forward to. Way back when I used to play football, and in fact with the Regina Rams, and after our practice, we'd be working hard and doing our thing in the practices. But we usually gathered together as a team, and I found just in a little, and that was kind of a good sort of post-practice getting together. And XL has that little bit of a team or a community feel or the community vibe that I kind of missed of having that whole time RAM thing. So, but also the community feel and the vibe was you've met new friends, And it was good. We did discuss ever so briefly, but part of the introduction of who we were and where we were from, and a little bit of our cancer journey. But we really didn't dwell on that. But you began to meet up with a similar group of folks that are going through the journey that you found yourself in. And the first one was super cost effective, was actually no cost, which was really attractive to people that pinched their pennies. But the later ones, there is a cost, and it is subsidized, and really it is thank you to the University of Calgary and their sponsors. It certainly helps, keeps the cost down. Many normal exercise programs and gyms are super expensive. So and just on that point, from Nicole's presentations, there appears to be very significant benefits to the program, and it's almost like another therapy. And perhaps maybe because of the costs associated with exercise, maybe they should be either subsidized a little bit or something through the Canadian healthcare and our provincial healthcare Medicare systems. Just a thought, throw that out. I found too, another thing that really was a benefit to me is that a little more control over my life, but that's subjective. But because you're going through all these different treatments, and some of them are obviously from the audience that I have today, there's the people with the surgeries and chemos and whatnot. But anyway, with the radiation, you begin to think on the appointments, and you don't have your own time. And so there was just a smidgen of a little bit of me time by, okay, here it is, the time to get in, ready to get, like I said earlier, with a thing to look forward to. And that was kind of my little bit of me time. And finally, I think I'm actually in better shape, but I guess you'll have to look at the data to show what they do the pre data information and then the post exercise. And I don't know whether I was that much better shape after the first enrollment, but there's issues like old man time and things like mobility with arthritis and all that good stuff. But from again Nicole's presentation, you got to keep on moving and be exercised. So hopefully we have some time to actually, here I am from the prairies and enjoying a little bit of sunshine and in good shape. So I'll turn it back over to one of the Nicoles or the other presentations. And if you have questions or like to make some comments, I'd certainly be able to hopefully answer from my perspective.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dale, for sharing that. As Nicole mentioned, I think it's absolutely critical that individuals hear from people who have come through the program, right? It speaks volumes to some of the things maybe that we don't measure, but also just the variety of experiences you can have in this program. It's so much more than exercise, I think, is what I'll conclude with. So contact information is on the screen, our website at the university where you can find out more about Excel, or you can send us an email. Best way to contact us as we're coming back into work after 2 long years of not being in on a regular basis. So with that, I'm happy to open it up to questions. I see Nicole's already replied to some of the chat questions. I'll hand it back over to Meyer and Rochelle for anything else. Thank you.